In a small, sunlit town near the Italian coast, Vincent and Sophia's marriage was the envy of their community. Vincent, a reserved and thoughtful art historian in his late 40s, spent his days preserving artifacts and studying ancient love letters that told stories of passion, heartbreak, and resilience. Sophia, his vivacious and younger wife, brought warmth to the local art gallery she managed, her charm attracting both patrons and the admiration of their community. Together, they built a life filled with laughter, dreams, and quiet mornings on their villa's balcony, sipping espresso and watching the sea. For years, Sophia seemed enchanted by Vincent's quiet passion and attentiveness, and she often joined him on his travels, exploring hidden cathedrals and ancient ruins. However, as time passed, Vincent noticed subtle changes. Sophia's laughter became softer, her gaze more distant, and her love for quiet moments seemed to wane. But his love remained steadfast. He believed that the ups and downs of married life were simply part of their journey together. One summer, a new artist arrived in town, a French sculptor named Lucien. He was everything Vincent was not: bold, spontaneous, and brimming with confidence. He and Sophia shared an instant connection, and as she helped him set up his exhibition, they spent countless hours together. Vincent, ever supportive, encouraged her to enjoy the new creative inspiration Lucien brought, not sensing the emotional shift this would ignite. Unbeknownst to Vincent, Sophia's friendship with Lucien grew into a secret she carried heavily. It wasn't love, she reassured herself, but a fleeting, passionate experience that made her feel alive in a way she hadn't in years. Guilt gnawed at her as the days passed, but Sophia convinced herself that this brief affair would reignite her love for Vincent and renew their marriage. She was confident that she could close this chapter without it affecting her life with her husband. Vincent, however, was far more observant than Sophia realized. One evening, while she was out under the guise of preparing the gallery for an upcoming exhibit, he found an unfinished letter on her vanity, a letter she had tried to write to Lucien to end their brief affair. The words were raw, a confession of her guilt and her struggle with the choices she had made. Crushed but determined, Vincent didn't confront Sophia. Instead, he spent the following weeks quietly preparing a future without her. His actions were subtle. He began gathering their important documents, slowly moved sentimental items out of the house, and even arranged for a small apartment in Rome. In their final days together, he was unfailingly tender, still sharing morning espressos and discussing art as though nothing had changed. Sophia, believing her secret was safe, sensed a newfound closeness and felt relieved. On the evening of their 15th anniversary, Vincent surprised her with a private dinner in the gallery she loved so much. They danced beneath the soft lights, surrounded by art that had shaped their lives, and for the first time in months, Sophia felt whole. As they swayed, Vincent whispered, "I want you to be happy, Sophia. Always." The following morning, Vincent was gone. In the bedroom, Sophia found only a note on his pillow: "I knew. I hope you find what you're searching for." It was signed with a simple V. Sophia's heart shattered as she read the words, realizing the depth of her mistake and the quiet dignity with which Vincent had chosen to leave her. In the days that followed, Sophia walked the familiar streets in despair, feeling as though her life had been stripped bare. With time, she returned to the gallery and continued her work, always missing the quiet presence of her husband. In a final act of closure, Sophia traveled to Rome months later, retracing the steps of their life together. There, she found Vincent living a humble, peaceful life among the art and history he loved. She didn't approach him, understanding that he had found a quiet happiness beyond her reach. As she turned away, Sophia whispered a silent promise to cherish the love they once shared, forever carrying his memory with her. Vincent, glancing up from a cathedral's doorway, caught sight of Sophia's distant figure, but he made no move to follow her. They had loved, lost, and finally, they had let go. Continuation in a couple of months. Part 1. The Roots of Love and Shadows of Doubt. Setting and background. Introduce Vincent and Sophia's relationship from its joyful beginnings. They met in Rome, where Vincent's reserved nature and profound knowledge of art captivated Sophia, a young and passionate art enthusiast. Their whirlwind romance led to a cozy life together, full of shared dreams, travels, and a villa near the Italian coast. Slowly building distance. Over the years, Sophia begins to grow restless, her creative side feeling constrained in their quiet life. Vincent is unaware of Sophia's inner turmoil, attributing her quietness to the natural rhythms of marriage. However, he begins to sense subtle changes: her distracted demeanor, the extended hours at the gallery, and her increasing preoccupation with her friend and co-worker, Lucien. A new attraction. Lucien's arrival in their lives stirs Sophia's dormant excitement. His daring perspective on art and life presents a contrast to Vincent's calmness. Their innocent friendship soon escalates into a passionate affair, leaving Sophia caught in a whirlwind of emotions, torn between the new thrill and her loyalty to Vincent. Part 2. The Shattered Illusion. For Vincent, life was built on certainties, and Sophia was his constant, a vibrant light in his world. But slowly, the growing distance between them became impossible to ignore. He sensed her distraction, noticed her phone's quiet chimes late at night, and the way she seemed almost wistful, her gaze drifting beyond him. Vincent felt the changes, but he didn't want to believe in them. One evening, as Sophia was working late at the gallery, Vincent happened upon a letter she had hidden within one of her sketchbooks, a book she rarely let him touch. The letter was raw, personal, and addressed to someone named Lucien. He read each word, feeling his heart break with every line. Sophia's letter confessed her feelings of restlessness, her guilt, and a connection to this Lucien that she could no longer ignore. She wrote that she was conflicted, that she still loved Vincent, but felt trapped by the monotony of their life. Vincent sat motionless, the letter clutched in his hands, his mind numb from the betrayal. A wave of sorrow washed over him, followed swiftly by anger. He could see the memories he had so carefully built with her dissolving, leaving behind only bitter remnants of a life he thought was shared. Yet, in his heart, he knew that a confrontation would only add to the pain. He decided not to reveal what he knew, instead planning a quiet, decisive exit. Vincent, the man who had cherished Sophia with every fiber of his being, now prepared himself to leave her in silence. He meticulously removed personal belongings, books, and even family photos from the house, hoping his absence would speak more loudly than words. On the evening before their anniversary, he planned one last dinner, knowing it would be their final shared moment. He poured her favorite wine, prepared a dish he had perfected just for her, and spent the evening reminiscing, encouraging her to laugh and remember the joy they once shared. When Sophia fell asleep that night, her hand resting gently on his shoulder, Vincent quietly slipped away. He left behind a single note on her pillow, marked with a simple yet cutting message: "I knew." In the morning, Sophia woke to an empty house. She moved through each room, her steps growing heavy as she began to understand the depth of his departure. Every trace of Vincent was gone, his desk was bare, his bookshelves emptied, even his favorite armchair stood desolate. As she walked into the bedroom, she saw the note, 2 words that shattered any hope of reconciliation. The finality of his departure settled heavily within her, leaving her to confront the empty silence that now filled their home. Part 3. A journey of redemption and rediscovery. Sophia was left to face the full weight of her choices. She spent days, then weeks, in a state of restless remorse. Letters, texts, and even attempted calls went unanswered. Vincent had disappeared entirely, his presence replaced only by the growing awareness of her mistake. She tried to reach out to Lucien, hoping for comfort, but he sensed her lingering attachment to Vincent. Their romance lost its appeal, and Sophia eventually ended it, recognizing that Lucian was not the answer to her pain. Consumed by regret, Sophia decided to take a journey of her own. She left the gallery, packed a small bag, and set out for Rome, the city where her love story with Vincent had begun. Walking the ancient streets alone, she revisited the places that held memories of their early days together. She found herself in quiet piazzas where they had once shared coffee, in art galleries where they had admired priceless works, and at the church where Vincent had once promised her forever. Each location bore a weight of sentiment, and as she retraced their steps, she began to understand the depth of his love for history and how much it mirrored his devotion to her. Her reflections grew deeper, and Sophia began to change. The once restless spirit softened, and she came to accept her own faults, seeing her actions through Vincent's eyes. She longed for a chance to make amends, even if forgiveness seemed out of reach. As time passed, Sophia found solace in her own creativity. She filled her sketchbook with scenes of Rome, capturing both its beauty and melancholy, feeling closer to Vincent through her art. Then, in a moment of clarity, she decided to write him one last letter. This time, it was not a letter of apology or explanation, but one of gratitude. She thanked him for the years they'd shared, for the love he had given her so freely, and she released him from any expectations. In doing so, she felt herself freed from the anguish she'd carried since his departure. On her last day in Rome, Sophia entered the grand cathedral where she and Vincent had once marveled at the vastness of its architecture. She wandered through its halls, pausing to gaze up at the ceiling, lost in thought. It was then that she noticed a familiar figure, standing quietly among the tourists, his gaze also fixed upward. There was Vincent, his face contemplative, slightly older, yet undeniably the man she'd fallen in love with. Her heart pounded, a mix of hope and sorrow. She wanted to approach him, to say everything she'd held in her heart. Instead, she left the letter she'd written in a place where she was certain he would find it, with her contact information included in case he wished to reconnect. The next morning, Sophia found herself back at the cathedral, almost against her will, drawn by an inexplicable pull. She looked around and saw Vincent, holding her letter. Their eyes met, and for the first time in months, they spoke softly, both raw with emotion. They talked of their shared past, the hurt, the memories, and the love that had been buried under layers of pain. Vincent listened as Sophia explained her regrets, her growth, and her gratitude. He forgave her, though he expressed no desire to rekindle what they had lost. Their lives, he said, had taken them down paths that were too separate now. With one final embrace, they parted ways, each finding a semblance of peace in the other's presence. For Sophia, it was closure. For Vincent, it was the end of a chapter he had once thought would last forever. Leaving the cathedral, Sophia felt a bittersweet calm. Though she could not undo the past, she had come to accept it. She knew her journey of rediscovery had given her something invaluable, a deeper understanding of love, of loss, and of herself.